What's up, guys? This is Zach with Top Deck Nation coming at you today with another deck profile video. So if you haven't seen our last one, be sure to check it out. We covered Pidgeot-EX and Garbodor. It's actually a really interesting deck. Pretty cheap deck for the most part, aside from your Shaymins, of course. But today we're going to be looking at a brand new promo that just came out. I believe it's already hit stores because the PTCGO code worked fine. It's definitely working and everything. So today we're going to be looking at Salamence-EX, and again, you can find it in stores. I think there's also a Garchomp as well. But this Salamence-EX is really interesting because, it's one of the more playable dragon types we've had in a long time, as well as a really good Pokemon EX. I feel like it's a hard counter to a lot of these hard-hitting Pokemon EXs right now, like Mega Mewtwo, of course, and Volcanion-EX. So if you're not sure what Salamence does, well, I'm definitely going to go through that. So I'm not too concerned about the second attack Dragon Strike, although, you can use it. I mean, a couple attachments of double dragon energy does 130, so I mean that's a nice clean attack. You can knock out your non-EX Eviltal, your non-EX Volcanion, etc. But, really we're concerned with this first attack called Beastly Fang, and that's a pretty awesome attack name. So it does 10 damage and then 50 more for each of your opponent's Pokemon EX, and that is ridiculous. Like, for example, if they have 4 Pokemon EX in play, so one of them's active and maybe 3 are on the bench, that's an extra 200 damage. So that means it's going to be doing 200 damage for 3 energy. And really that's just 2 energy attachments. That's a fire energy and probably, either a double dragon or a double colorless energy. So it's really easy to pull off this kind of attack and, being able to hit that massive amount of damage. Even if you're just doing, even if they just have 3 on the bench, that's going to be 160, or 3 total, I should say. And with the Fighting Fairy Belt, that's 170. So just 3 Pokemon EX in play, and you can already start knocking out their EXs. And that is just, that is really, really good. And that's going to be our main attacker of this deck. So, you might recognize a lot of this deck. It's kind of reusing the same kind of concept as, several months ago when some players were using like Reshiram and Hydreigon. I think they were using like Mega Rayquaza as well. But of course, back then you also kind of centered around Giratina, and that's why I put a couple in here as well. So the deck is really versatile in the sense that, maybe you're focused on locking special energy or tools or something, so you can do that, or, you can go the aggressive route and just hit for, a load of damage. So Giratina, of course, has that Renegade Pulse. It can't be touched by Megas. And then, of course, Chaos Will, which is really strong now. It's usually paired with Seismitoad-EX in the expanded format, but in here, it's doing a clean 100 damage, and your opponent can't play tools, special energies, or stadium. So really, devastating lock if you can pull that off, depending on what deck you're playing against. So those are the attackers. Of course, Hydreigon's Dragon Road is awesome because it gives our Dragon Pokemon free retreat as long as there's a stadium in place. So it's really going to make this Reshiram a lot stronger. And this Reshiram is really going to be the bread and butter of this deck. It's got the energy acceleration we need to power up Salamence and Giratina as early as the first turn. And Reshiram, it has this Turbo Blaze ability. Once per turn, if it's active, attach a fire energy to your dragon Pokemon. Now, had it said attach a fire energy to any of your Pokemon, like any of your basics, this would be extremely good. I could think of a number of decks that could play it, but it's still good regardless in Dragon decks. And then Brightwing, it's a good non-EX attacker if you have to, but let's not focus on it too much. And then, I should mention lastly that Shred is a good attack against things like Jolteon, anything that can't be touched by like an EX or a basic or something like that. Regice comes to mind. But yeah, basically the strategy of the deck, guys, is use Turbo Blaze, Reshiram's ability to power up Salamence or Giratina, and then you attach a Double Dragon and you are good to go for a lot of damage. So we're also playing a Hoopa, of course, just to kind of search out our EXs, get a nice, consistent and aggressive start. And then Shaymin-EX, just because, it's a great draw card. And we're playing 3 of those because we want to be really aggressive. So, really the goal of the deck is to get Salamence powered up and attack. So as far as our supporters go, for Professor Sycamore, of course, probably the best supporter in the game. 2N, I would have liked to seen 3N. I was playing 3 at one point and I did like it a lot, but the deck is just so tight. Definitely tweak it to your liking. I can definitely understand if you'd prefer having more supporters. I mean, I guess you could take out a Shaymin or maybe a Giratina or something, but the deck definitely does well even with just 2N. We're also playing 2 Lysandre because it makes it a lot easier to take cheap knockouts. As long as our opponent has 2 Pokemon EX in play, it doesn't matter. I don't have to go after the main attacker. I can just Lysandre Shaymins every turn and take, cheap knockouts. So that's really good. Hex Maniac, just in case we go against something like Greninja, something that's really reliant on abilities. Volcanion also. If we can just kind of get those out of the way, those decks are not quite as good as they should be, not quite as good if they can't use their abilities. 1 Olympia, and this is just kind of a luxury card. We're already playing 4 Switch, but it's just a nice Switch card to have if we have to discard Switches early on. And also because, you can heal 30. So a lot of times when I was playing this deck, a Pokemon might have attacked me and normally it would have 2-shotted me. Well, I can play Olympia and suddenly now it's, it's out of range for that knockout next turn. Suddenly it's 3-shotting me. So definitely a good card, good utility card. And then Pokemon Ranger is good against things like Jolteon, of course, or even Giratina. If we're locked out of Special Energy, we're probably going to lose because all of our attackers use Special Energy. As far as our items go, we have 4 Ultra Ball. It's good to just search out our Pokemon. 3 Trainers Mail, just, for consistency's sake, getting more trainers, etc., getting your supporters out. 4 Seeker because we want to reuse those supporters. Like I said, we're playing a thin line of draw support, so Seeker is going to let us reuse those supporters. 4 Switch is really good in this deck because, a lot of times you want to switch into Reshiram, and then you want to retreat into something like Salamence. So necessary to have 4. You could also split this if you'd rather have like 2 Switch, 2 Escape Rope, or 3 Switch, 1 Escape Rope. I can definitely see why Escape Rope would be played here, but I generally prefer Switch. I'd rather switch into something and know that I'm going to be attacking what's active. We're also playing 1 Special Charge just because we play a lot of double dragons. A lot of games you're going to be burning through this deck and discarding your special energy, so we need to get those back somehow. And then we play Super Rod just to kind of get our energy back so we can Turbo Blaze a little bit more. And then lastly, we play 3 Fighting Fury Belt. And Fighting Fury Belt makes this deck really good because suddenly those Megas that have like 220 HP, Salamence can one-shot them. And, suddenly those EXs that have 170 HP, Salamence can one-shot them as well. It makes it a little bit easier with the math. Normally you might be like 10, 20 damage off, but Fighting Fury Belt kind of gets around that problem. So I think I've pretty much covered everything. And then, of course, Sky Field is our stadium. Now, a lot of times you might be thinking, why not Scorched Earth? Why not Perilous City? This deck needs to be really, really aggressive. A lot of decks are just so simple to set up, like Yveltal. It's just kind of unreal. Volcanion with Max Elixir. So, in order to keep up, I have to play Sky Field so I can just burn through the deck, get Shaymins out as soon as possible, and get this, ridiculous setup that just kind of overwhelms my opponent eventually. I do like Perilous City. I love it as a one-of, but in this deck, I don't think it really fits. If you think about what decks play Sky Field, you don't really need to counter them with Perilous City. Let's be honest, Mega Gardevoir is probably going to destroy this deck because of weakness. No matter how many Pokemon I get them down to, Gardevoir is still doing 220 damage at least after weakness, so it doesn't really matter. Same thing with Rainbow Road. They're always going to have, at least 3 different dual types on the bench, so they're going to get the knockout. Let's be honest. Volcanion and Shaymin alone, that's 3 different types. And then, in general, Mega Rayquaza, same thing. I don't really care. If they get more EXs out, that's fine because I can just power up Salamence and get, cheap knockouts. So that is pretty much it, guys. That's the deck. I've really enjoyed playing this deck. I think it's fun. Hard to say how competitive it is so far, but, like I said, it's probably going to lose against something like Fairies. But in general, it's definitely a hard EX counter deck. It's good against Mega Mewtwo, good against Volcanion. Not so much against Greninja, but Greninja isn't played quite as much now because of Garbodor. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump into a game I recently played on Pokemon Trading Card Game Online just to give you an idea of how the deck works. Alright guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. Looks like I did have a basic at Giratina, so I'm going to go ahead and start. And my start isn't terrible. I mean, I would have preferred to start Reshiram, but it's not a big deal. Looks like he is going to go first. He's got Trubbish, so there is going to be Garbodor, so I'm going to have to watch out because, one of the drawbacks of this deck, I guess, is, such a reliance on special energy. So, or not special energy, I should say, but abilities. Yeah, abilities because of, Renegade Pulse and Turbo Blaze and setup and everything. So, hopefully Garbodor won't come out, but I get the feeling that it will. And he's going to go ahead and use Hoopa, so this is going to give us an idea of what we're up against, what kind of deck. It's probably maybe a Mega Mewtwo or Scizor or something, but it looks like it is a Mega Mewtwo deck. And, I'm not too afraid of this. I've got Giratina. He can lock Special Energy, he can lock, tools, and can't be really attacked by Megas. But I've also got Salamence, and I think in this matchup, I think you use Salamence more than Giratina because, if you think about it, one Turbo Blaze gets the fire on Salamence, one Double Dragon gets the other 2 energy, and then, you can hit for big damage. Right now, if I had Salamence out attacking, I would be doing 160 already. Hopefully we can get it down in the first turn. It's, definitely gonna be a stretch, but maybe we can. You never know. So I'm going to go ahead and Ultra Ball. Looks like everything's there. I don't really have anything prized, so this is a pretty ideal start here. I'm going to go ahead and get Hoopa and use Scoundrel Ring to go ahead and get a bunch of my EXs out. I replaced Shrine of Memories with Sky Field. And again, this is why I played 3 stadiums. I'm going to make him work to actually get the stadiums out and hopefully get rid of those Shrine of Memories. I don't want to have to, deal with him healing off damage and, taking cheap knockouts on like Shaymins or something. But I've got Hydreigon, I've got Salamence. Really good setup here. Double Dragon on Salamence and setup for 4. And it looks like off that setup we're getting, okay, another Hydreigon, not bad. Probably want a Trainers Mail. I'd like to get a Reshiram, maybe an Ultra Ball, but I don't get it. I'm just going to pick up Lysandre. That way I can just kind of discard it so I can use it, throughout the game. And I'm just going to via Seeker for Sycamore. So pretty ideal start here, aside from not having Reshiram. So maybe a Switch, a Reshiram, and a Fire Energy would be great. And it looks like I whiffed pretty much all of those. I've got Ultra Ball to get Reshiram out, so I'll discard Sycamore and Olympia just so I can have, Olympia throughout the game with a couple of Verse Seekers. So I can go ahead and put down Reshiram, but I think that's really all I need to do. I mean, Trainer's Mail maybe to get Switch, but I don't even see that. So I'm just going to probably pass here. And we'll just have to see what happens here. This is going to be a pretty big turn for my opponent. Can they get Garbodor out? Looks like they did. But can they get like a Floatstone or, a Spirit Link or something on it? That's going to be the, the big question here. Because if they do, then, that's going to be really big. Like I said, I rely on abilities. So, if they're locking my abilities, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble here. But if they whiff it, I might just be okay. It looks like they did actually too. I wasn't really paying attention just now, but it looks like they did. So I've got Switch. I should be able to pull off a, an attack here. And I'm going to be doing 160 damage, I think, if my math is correct. Now, I do hate that I have to get rid of Garbodor instead of like Mega Mewtwo because, there's always the possibility that he could just kind of knock me out next turn. I think if he needs, let's see, he just needs 3 energy to knock me out. He's already got 1, so he can either attach a DCE or he can just Mega Turbo and attach to get a knockout. But again, Garbodor is going to be gone. So without Garbodor, Mega Mewtwo isn't too much of a threat. I'm not even going to really attack it unless I can get a clean knockout. So let's see what happens here. Parallel City is going to hurt me a lot. I'm going to have to go from 7 to 3. So I'm going to have to discard Shaymin, probably Hydreigon. So there we go. So I've got like the core Pokemon I need. Giratina is good against Megas, Hydreigon for free retreat, and Reshiram for the energy acceleration. So I think Mega Mewtwo is going to be taking a knockout this turn. But, thankfully I've got a Fire Energy. I've got Salamence. So, not that big of a deal. I just need a Double Dragon. I can probably return knockout, but he needs to get more EXs out. I think he needs just 1 more EX and I should be able to knock him out next turn. And, that's a lot. That's one of the good things about Salamence. I think it just has like a psychological effect on your opponent as well. Like it kind of makes them decide whether or not, it's worth it putting down another EX. If they do, I can just do more damage, but if they don't, then they can't really get set up. I mean, he has to put down another Mewtwo. Otherwise, what happens if this one gets knocked out? So he'll take the knockout because I don't have a Fighting Fury bout, unfortunately, but it's okay. I'm going to bring up Reshiram, and really, I just need a double dragon to get the knockout. I'm doing 210 damage right now. So Salamence is going to come down. I can go ahead and Turbo Blaze, but the decision comes, should I end a 5 or should I just Sycamore? And, I think I'm just going to go for the Sycamore because, it gives me a really good shot. I've got 20 cards in my deck, so I'm going to be drawing through, over a third of my deck, and I think I've got like 3 Dragon Energies left in the deck here. And there we go, one of the last cards, but that doesn't really matter too much. Reshiram's going to retreat, and looks like he'll be doing just enough for the knockout here. And, that's going to put a ton of pressure on my opponent. What do they really do? Because they're going to need 4 energy on Mewtwo, a Spirit Link, a Mega Mewtwo. I mean, that's really hard to pull off. And if they can't, I can just Lysandre it up and knock it out. So, that's one of the things I love about Salamence. If you're going against these EX heavy decks, it is so, easy to set up and get a knockout. It's just really clean, especially if they have 170 HP or 210 HP. Fighting Fury Bout makes Salamence just really, really strong, and so does Turbo Blaze. So he does have Trubbish. He could get another Garbodor. That would be kind of scary, but with the 5-card hand, what do you really do? I mean, it's just hard to say here. He's got Floatstone, so that's good. Can he get a Garbodor? But no, he's actually going to concede because I don't think he can get a knockout. He knows that, the next turn I'm going to get a knockout off that Mewtwo. That's really good. That's crazy. But yeah, that's exactly what Salamence does. It's great against these EX heavy decks. It just serves as kind of a hard counter to those decks. But, the downside of that is that it will struggle against these non-EX decks that don't really rely on them, like, the Raikou Electro deck that's kind of popped up, or Greninja. But this is going to be another game right here. This is going to be, it looks like a Volcanion deck, and we see that Torchic that has that Alpha Barrage. It can attack twice, so kind of afraid of that, maybe. There's Volcanion. So looking at my hand right now, it's actually really bad. That was a strong in off of my opponent. I can use my opponent's Scorched Earth, though, to draw 2 cards. But this is a pretty terrible start, to be honest. And he's going to pass. Okay. So there we go. I top a Sycamore. That's good. I guess you Scorched Earth. I'm going to have to discard my hand anyway. I may get like a Salamence off of it or something. Right, I get Trainers Mail, and looks like there's not a whole lot of Trainers Mail. So I'll just Fighting Fury about the Reshiram. I'd rather not waste it. You never know, I might attack with it. And I'm just going to use Professor Sycamore here. Should I'm trying to determine, whether or not I should attach to the Shaymin. Otherwise, I might have to waste the switch. But then if I'm attaching to Shaymin, I'm kind of missing an attachment off of Salamence. But I think I just have to. It's not a big deal. I can retreat to Reshiram this turn, thankfully. My hand looks decent. I've got a supporter for next turn. I've got Hoopa to get some stuff out. So I think I'll just go ahead and use Hoopa. And yeah, I think I'll get Salamence, and I got Giratina. I don't even know if I really need Giratina so much because this is a Volcanion deck, but I guess I'll get it out anyway. I mean, you never know what might be in it, so let's go ahead and get those out. And I've got a pretty ideal setup here. I've got all my dragons. Shaymin's going to be able to retreat, of course. Trainer's Mail, it's, I don't really need anything, but I'll grab Ultra Ball just in case. And I'll just retreat to Reshiram. I don't really need to do anything. And I guess I'll just pass. But it sets me up for a pretty good board the next turn. I can always just double Dragon Salamence, Turbo Blaze if I can draw into it, which is pretty likely, and then just attack. And at this point, you know, my opponent, they don't have a really good setup, but they do get Hoopa, and Hoopa is probably going to change that. It's probably going to get a couple Volcanion, maybe a Shaymin. You never know. He might even be able to pull off a knockout this turn if he uses, you know, Max Elixir in this deck. And, you know, the goal of my deck, the real strategy against Volcanion here, is going to be just hitting hard with Salamence. You know, Giratina, kind of useless. Hydreigon, you know, 90 isn't that bad, but it's not doing much. I need to take knockouts off of Volcanion. I also would like to be able to consistently use Hex Maniac, so that way Volcanion can't use that steam up ability to keep, you know, powering those fire attacks up. There's only, you know, so many Max Elixirs he can play in a turn before, you know, he starts whiffing them. He has to, you know, waste a turn using Power Heater with the non-EX to kind of power up the EXs. So, you know, the deck's a little slower than you might think, especially if I'm consistently getting these clean knockouts. But, you know, I think he has the early advantage at the moment. He's going to be able to use Power Heater for, I think, like 30 at least. And he's going to play an N, so I don't like that I have to give up my double dragon energy, but I might be able to get a fire and a double dragon, so you never know. Looks like I get a decent hand here. You know, I get fire energy, so I might be able to pull off an attack next turn. You know, if I can't top deck the double dragon to Lysandre the Volcanion, I'm going to be in some trouble. And looks like I don't. I get Fighting Fury Belt, but that's not really going to cut it here. Volcanion is clearly the threat on the bench. It's got 3 energy. You know, he just has to steam up a few times, which is pretty, you know, pretty likely, of course. They probably play like 11, 12 energy. But I think I just have to go for a knockout. I'm going to go ahead and use Professor Sycamore. You know, I hate having to get rid of things like Special Charge, another Lysandre, but I pretty much have to. My chances are good to get the double dragon. I'm going to Ultra Ball a Giratina away because it's kind of useless, as I mentioned, and it's just going to increase my chances of getting that double dragon. And there we go. I get 2 double dragons. So let's see here. He's got 4 EXs. So looks like I'll be doing 220 damage to this Volcanion. So way more enough to knock it out. But again, Volcanion-EX is the real threat here, not the non-EX Volcanion. But I feel like I have to just keep being aggressive to keep up with this deck. So there we go. I'm just going to risk it. If something happens, maybe I can get another Salamence and take another knockout, just kind of bait him into bringing up Volcanion. But I need to do something to just keep being aggressive against this deck because, you know, most of the time if you lose to Volcanion, it's because you got outpaced because it's so fast. It's just crazy. So Volcanion is going to need 3 steam ups, I believe, to get the knockout. He's doing 140 right now, so he'll have to do 230 to actually get the knockout. So he's going to Ultra Ball, get another Volcanion, so that's good. So he's got the 3 Volcanions, so now he needs 3 fire energy to get the knockout. You know, if he plans to attach to Volcanion, that's going to be a different story. It means he's going to need 4 energy, and of course, if he uses Max Elixir, that's kind of burning through your fire energy as well. So he's going to play in again. I don't mind this. This isn't too bad. I didn't want to have to discard 3 of my energy anyway. And looks like my hand is kind of bad. I didn't get a supporter. I've got Sky Field, but no extra Shaymin or anything. So I'm going to have to top deck something, assuming Salamence gets knocked out. But keep in mind, I think he still has to discard 3 fires just to knock me out. And if he wants to attach the Volcanion on the bench, you know, it's 4 fires. Chances are, I seriously doubt he's got 4 fires in his hand. And there we go, Volcanic Heat for 140, so he's going to whiff the knockout, and I'm going to actually do, what, like 270 damage to him? All right, I'm going to go ahead and use Scorched Earth. I get the Ultra Ball for next turn, so that's going to be good. I get Sky Field out. I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of this situation. I'm going to Ultra Ball for the Salamence, switch into Reshiram, Turbo Blaze, so I'm going to get really just pretty much set for another knockout next turn. You know, I could get Shaymin instead of Salamence because being able to draw 6 is just really strong. But chances are between the 2 prizes and then drawing next turn, I should be able to get something, you know, a Verse Seeker, Shaymin, you know, something. So there goes the Turbo Blaze. And, you know, like I said, something that makes this deck just so good is the fact that not only does Reshiram have free retreat thanks to Hydreigon, but you can also just freely switch between them with, you know, a switch card. And there we go. Volcanion is going to go down. We're going to go down to 3 prizes. We're just trying to be aggressive. And as you might notice, you know, my opponent has not taken a single prize yet. You know, I'm still doing 220 damage, even with this Volcanion being knocked out. And I'm putting a lot of pressure on them. And I've got the Sycamore. It looks like I got that off the prizes, so that's good. So he's going to get a Fighting Fury belt. And he's going to Ninja Boy. Interesting. He's going to Ninja Boy into the Volcanion. And I think he realizes, hey, you know, I've got to power up Volcanion just to stay in this game. I've burned through a couple max elixirs. I've got to do something here. So Salamence is going to survive yet another turn here. And he's going to power up Torchic. So, I mean, maybe Torchic's going to get that cheap knockout. I don't know. But I think what I might do is just put pressure on my opponent. As you can see, I'm just kind of counting to see how much damage I'm doing. And with the Fighting Fury belt, I'm doing 170. So I think my game plan here is going to be to knock out the Hoopa. And I'm going to leave the Shaymin because if he, you know, pulls some kind of shenanigan where he just has 2 EXs in play, then I can still knock out Shaymin, of course, unless he decides to, you know, use Ninja Boy next turn. So I'm going to go ahead and take the knockout. I'm getting, yeah, I'm doing exactly enough to get that knockout. So I'll go down to 1 prize. So again, it's going to put him in an awkward position. He's going to have to play an N, or otherwise I think I just kind of win. You know, I can Turbo Blaze, I can Professor Sycamore. So I think he'll bring up the non-EX Volcanion because he has to use Volcanic Heat here. He has to. He has to power up those Volcanions, the Torchic. I think the Torchic's already good and powered up. So maybe, you know, maybe the Shaymin just for free retreat or something. Or just 2 retreat, I should say. Okay, so yeah, he's going to do that. He has to M8 a 1. I mean, he pretty much has to. I think I can just pretty much win the game. I can knock out anything he has, basically. And if he puts down any kind of EX, you know, it makes it a lot easier as well. So there we go. We get the end of 1. This could hurt us. Just depends on what we draw off of this. And, oh, it looks like we get a Shaymin. So unless he can put down like a Parallel City or a Scorched Earth or something, you know, Shaymin's going to come down. He might even want to be taking advantage of Sky Field. I don't know. But, you know, Salamence is going to go down. But, you know, Shaymin, there we go. I mean, Shaymin's going to get us 6 cards. Chances are we might get another supporter off of it. So let's go ahead and bring up Reshiram. And we need a double dragon. So, oh my gosh, there we go. Double dragon. So it looks like right now I'm doing, what, 120 damage with the Fighting Fury belt. So a Lysandre get the Shaymin out should win us the game here. And there we go, Verse Seeker. So I'm going to go ahead and Verse Seeker both my Lysandre are in the discard, but that's fine. And I'm going to bring up Shaymin, and we will get the knockout. So free retreat out to the Salamence, and take it out in 1 blow, doing 120 damage, I think. Yeah, so there we go, guys. You know, as you can see, you know, I tried to get a couple games in with these 2 decks to kind of show that, you know, I think overall it has favorable matchups. It's just really strong against these EX decks. You know, the only issue is that it's really hard to get. You know, online it was a lot of packs just to get it. In real life, I think it's going for like 20 bucks. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but hopefully those are just hype prices. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Be sure to like us and subscribe. Check out our website for articles. I'm going to try to relaunch the website really soon. And of course, follow us on Facebook at Top Deck Nation and Instagram as well if you like that. But in the meantime, this has been Zach with Top Deck Nation. I'll catch you guys in the next video. And as usual, thanks for watching.